We live in an age where we expect instant results. We've seen the John Walls, we've seen some of the terrific point guards that have came through this program and other programs as well. And for me now, like these two guys remind me of how my freshman year was. It took me a while to figure out how to truly be an extension of my coach on the floor, how to make sure I got everybody else involved, how I brought an intensity defensively each and every possession, and then, oh, by the way, yes, I can still score the basketball and make plays and not feel constricted by the game management process that I never really had to pay attention to in high school. So for me to watch both Ashton become a leader, to watch him, whatever moment you want to call that he on the court, like that's what you want from your guard. Like that's your lead guard. And to watch a guy like Devin Dotson become that guy where you finally start to see the game slow down for him, it's starting to go around 40-50% instead of the game just going 8,000 miles per hour. Maybe he sees it around 20 miles per hour. I think that shift and change really helps young point guards at that position.
What have you seen the difference from Ashton? You saw him against Duke, and then you've, of course, watched the last couple games with him. I mean, it's pretty much a night and day.
Yeah, I didn't put a lot of stock into the first game of the season. And just for fans out there, do you know how many things go through your head the first game of the season? And by the way, it's on a monumental stage. You're on ESPN. All the lights are the brightest. And I think there was a lot of shell shock. And I think also it just wasn't Ashton. It was Cal. And, I would say this to Cal, and I love Cal. He's actually a good friend, and I come down here to do the fantasy camp. I think it takes a while for a coach to understand what the strengths are of his players while they're going through that. There are a lot of changes that have made. He's shortened his bench. Certain players have left. There have been more roles that are filled. And I think the more that happens throughout time, the more a player like Ashton can start to own his position.
Along those lines, he said that normally he doesn't like steals. He doesn't like to create steals, but he's playing to Hagen's strength. How much difference is the defense from Kentucky this season to maybe the typical John Calipari team?
Oh, my God. It's night and day. I don't care what anybody says. When you have a guy like, I think the two best on-ball defenders in college basketball are Ashton Hagans and Trey Jones. When you have that as your point of attack at the top, think about how that affects everything you do offensively. All of a sudden, if you're Ashton Hagans and I'm bringing the ball up against you, I'm worried about you stealing the basketball. That's taking me away from setting up my offense, getting us in the right position. And also it extends my point of entry within the offense. I'm running my set out maybe 10 feet from the three-point line instead of right at the three-point line. So having a pest around like that makes the world of a difference defensively because you never know when he's coming.
Switching to P.J. Washington real quick, because locally a lot of the questions have been kind of about his motor and effort and those kind of things. When you watch him on the court,
nationally.
Yeah, okay. So what have you seen from him, his highs and his lows?
Cal said it at the beginning of the year that I thought was so on point. He's like, this team doesn't have a chance to win a championship unless P.J. Washington becomes that dog. He has to become that player that demands greatness from himself and then from other players. And I think for me, watching him lose weight over the summer and then watching him slowly blossom into that player, sometimes you just see it in the player's eyes where they want to own it. I think he had a moment with Nick Richards where he pulled him by the jersey and he said something to him. And I think as a former player, when I see another player do that, those moments speak volumes about where they are and their own security with themselves. I think PJ's been a little bit insecure about who PJ is. Yeah. And now I think you bring Travis Reed, I think you bring other guys on board. I think we're finally actually getting to see the real PJ Washington. My only challenge for him is he has to sustain that and continue to elevate that play. You can't just become stagnant because that kid, there's nobody in college basketball that should be able to stop PJ Washington. You tell me who can, maybe Zion Williamson. He might be the only person, but I still don't think that Zion can purely stop PJ. PJ's the only person that can stop PJ.
Okay, after the game, the last game, we were talking to him about that, and someone asked him, what is the difference? And he goes, if I knew that, I wouldn't be switching the on and off switch. How tough is it to get over a mental hurdle, maybe even more than a physical one?
Well, this game is all psychological. And, I think for a player like him, you have to find ways to get outside of yourself. And sometimes, look, this is going to kind of sound awkward, but in a way, when you become insecure or when you become introverted and you think about you, that's selfish, right? You're thinking about what's wrong with me? How come I can't turn a switch? I think for a guy like PJ, it was the same key for me. When you get lost into the game, however you need to do that, this is what all the greats do. Kobe, LeBron James, they find a way to get lost in the chaos of the game. If it's being competitive, somebody saying something to you, how do you get yourself to the best point possible where you can be optimal and you can actually translate that to the court. And I think for PJ, it's about finding that space and not letting that switch turn on off. And that comes sometimes for certain players, that comes with time. That comes with a word called maturity. And sometimes we're just not as patient enough to let players mature. We want them to evolve right out of the gate.
Last one. What is it, this fan base, kind of the Kentucky fan base in game day? What's it like when you come here?
UVA's been great. Duke's been great. But, to be real with you, man, there's no place like Big Blue Nation. The way, I've been doing TV for 11 years now, and this place has been packed almost every single time. I know what I get when I come here, and that's what makes this place special as hell.